Thank you,
So there, I mean, I consider misinformation and disinformation to be two completely different things. I mean, misinformation is something that's often driven by good intentions, but just mistake. You know, it's a mistake that gets amplified and spread around. Disinformation is something much more insidious, where untruths are spread. I should say, lies are spread deliberately in order to create a certain effect. And in today's world, the largest purveyors of disinformation, aside from, you know, the broadcast stations that, you know, took the abrogation of the fairness doctrine and ran with them to become, you know, propaganda outlets, but also social media is a real problem. And among those, I would say Facebook is the biggest problem. First of all, they allowed Cambridge Analytica to target people with disinformation and voter manipulation to convince them to stay home during the last election, or to create wedge issues that they amplified through the use of a complicated, you know, network of bots, trolls, and legitimate accounts. And then you have the problems on their algorithms that boost certain content and that keep other content kind of, you know, on the down low. Well, their algorithms tend to boost disinformation content. And in choosing not to stop hate speech, disinformation, harassment, and other types of things that damage a society, Facebook has played one of the biggest roles in the potential collapse of democracy. They have not done, not only have they not done enough to combat that and change that, you almost wonder what their agenda really is, because they have been so resistant to making basic changes to their platform policies and to their algorithms that would, you know, boost truth over disinformation. It's really troubling, and that's something that we could talk all day about. But I would say that social media in particular is probably where the rubber hits the road as far as disinformation goes.
Like, we all like drama. We all like action. Because we wanted to find things that takes our mind off of what's going on at work, what's going on in the office, what's going on in pettiness in our own family, right? So back to what Jennifer was talking about, those algorithms and anything that can be used against us, they do it. I have an 83-year-old grandmother who's up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what she's watching, but when she's over in her house in the morning, she comes, talks to me about different stuff, and she writes it on her notepad, like, what is this? Is this true? Because she doesn't listen to the president, but she does know one of his famous quotes, fake news. So she was like, is this real? And some of the other elders who are a part of our neighborhood garden, they come ask me the same thing. So it's very hard to stop this when you can't control who's doing advertising on TV, radio, or however. And that's where, once again, grassroots entities, universities come in and their expertise help inform their students or their residents.
That we need to get away from letting people lie with impunity, to get away from treating lies with kid gloves by calling them untruths or twisted the facts or something like, I mean, just call it a lie because it's a lie. And be hard on people who lie. There should be consequences, societal consequences. There should be, disapproval. There should be a consequence for lying. And not only should there be a consequence for lying, there should be a consequence for engaging in false equivalence. When they try to say there's two sides to every story, like there's two sides to climate change, is it real? Is it not? No, there really aren't two sides to that issue. And we need to stop creating the false paradigm that there are two sides, because that elevates the lie to, a co-equal basis with the truth. And that leads us to kind of a post-truth society. And that's not someplace we want to be.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are limits to free speech. We have to collectively reach a decision that alternative facts is not acceptable. It is perfectly valid to have a deep political debate about how to address climate change, what the alternatives are, what the pros and cons. And you can even take the position that climate change is unchangeable, or it's not as bad as people say it is. All of those are valid positions. The idea that climate change is not occurring is not a fact. It's just not a fact. And I think Jennifer makes a really important point. The mainstream media has been willing to say that isn't quite right, that isn't, etc. I think we need to basically say lies are lies, and lies are disqualifying for people in public right, or at least the second lie is, maybe you get it wrong once, okay. But a pattern of lying is disqualifying for anyone. And I think that until we do that, we're in real trouble.
Lying is a way to retain power now because there is no social cost, there's no political cost. And that's really why lies have flourished currently. No one is willing to call out the liar because the liar gives them access to power. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be in right now.
I'm not sure we've adjusted to Facebook having several billion people on Facebook globally. I'm not sure our system has yet adjusted to the danger that's created by people able to get misinformation to millions of people all the time. I don't think our system's adjusted for that. And of course, Facebook has not chosen to adjust themselves, right? They've chosen, in fact, because of exactly the reason Justin said. People like to have their views reinforced because people like the more extreme stuff, etc. Now, obviously, the way to respond is an educated populace, but we haven't responded with that either. We need to make a whole different commitment to educating the public, starting with kids in school, so that they know they're going to be subjected to things that are absolutely not true every day. I don't think we've ever constructed our educational system to respond to that, to say, people are going to tell you things that are the equivalent of the world being flat. And you have to be able to respond to that. This has to start in first grade. This has to start in the public schools, etc. That people understand that in order to be engaged citizens in the world that we live in, you have to be much more skeptical. You have to be much engaged. You have to work harder because people are going to tell you things that are crazy all the time.